What's up, everybody? Welcome to an emergency episode of the JT Sports Podcast. This is the first emergency episode that we have done in the history of this pod for a very good reason. I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning covering Lane Kiffin's decision to leave Ole Miss for LSU. And just when I was about to lay down, get a few Z's before the NFL games kicked off at 1, the Lane Kiffin situation just got super toxic and super wild. So Lane Kiffin had a meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Central Time this morning where he would announce to his team, his players, his official decision to leave Ole Miss for LSU. Well, that meeting just got pushed back to 1 p.m. Central Time because Lane Kiffin is threatening Ole Miss that if they don't allow him to finish what he started and coach this team in the college football playoffs, guess what he's going to do? He's going to burn Ole Miss down to the ground, and he's going to take his entire offensive coaching staff with him right away to Baton Rouge if this university doesn't let him coach in the playoffs. And it's pretty obvious who holds all the cards in this situation. Ole Miss, if you allow Lane Kiffin to not coach in the CFP and he takes everybody on his offensive staff, you're not going to have any time to get any interim offensive coordinators, any interim position coaches on the offensive staff. And essentially, you risk having the FSU snub happening to you, because how can a committee view you as one of the top 12 teams if you don't have the entirety of your offensive coaching staff? It's one thing to lose your head coach. You can promote somebody to interim head coach status for the playoffs, but you can't replace losing your entire offensive staff in 1 or 2 weeks. Now, the players aren't going to opt out of the playoffs. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They want to play in the playoffs. But if you don't have the offensive staff, which has obviously aligned themselves with Lane Kiffin has promised every single person on that staff, hey, bro, come to me to LSU. You're going to have a job. I'm going to take care of you. Lane Kiffin has all the power in this situation. He has all the leverage in this situation. And for the folks saying, well, Ole Miss can allow him to coach in the playoffs because they can't allow him to recruit the players on this team to follow him to LSU, that doesn't really matter. The players are going to follow him to LSU no matter what, because the main reason why these coaches, why these players are at Ole Miss to begin with is because Lane Kiffin is the program. Lane Kiffin is Ole Miss. So if you don't allow him to coach in the college football playoffs, who are you going to have on your offensive staff? Now I'm starting to understand why people were calling Lane Kiffin a hoe, why they were saying he's a drama queen. You talk about toxic. This is the most toxic coaching departure in the history of college football. Lane Kiffin. There's a good reason why they don't want to allow you to coach in the CFP, because during the practices, you're going to be in the players' ear saying, hey, man, make sure you come with me to LSU. I'm going to take care of you. You're going to coach for the ops. This isn't you leaving for another job in the Big Ten. This isn't you leaving to take the Penn State head coaching job. You're leaving to go coach Ole Miss, biggest rival. You're leaving to go coach the ops. So they can't allow you to just be poaching these players off the roster, even though it's inevitable that the players are going to follow you. But maybe the Ole Miss boosters, the Ole Miss donors feel, if Lane Kiffin not the building, they can throw them a little bit more bread to incentivize them to stay instead of following Lane Kiffin. But look, I still side with Lane Kiffin in this situation. Lane Kiffin is the greatest head coach in the history of Ole Miss football. He should be allowed to have the honor of finishing what he started. There are other head coaches like John Sumrall, the head coach of North Texas, who, despite them taking other jobs, they still are going to be allowed to coach their team in the postseason if they make it to the playoffs. So why is it that these other coaches get the luxury of still being able to coach their teams in the playoffs despite leaving for bigger jobs, but Lane Kiffin not be given that same honor with him being the greatest head coach that Ole Miss has ever had? Ole Miss, in terms of football, outside of a few years with Eli Manning and the year they upset Alabama, they don't really have a lot of history. When you think about Ole Miss, you think about what Lane Kiffin has done his 6 years in Oxford. So he should be given the right to coach this team. It's a disservice to these players that they sacrificed all these hours into this season to not be able to go to war with the man who got them there to begin with. It's a bad look on the university. Ole Miss looks like the bitter ex in this situation. You know, when you break up with your girl and your girl's threatening you, oh, well, I'm going to leak these posts, I'm going to leak these messages, trying to guilt trip you to stay in. That's what Ole Miss is trying to do. They are the bitter ex-girlfriend that are mad because their ex-boyfriend is moving on, has found the upgrade, and they're trying to find a way to get back at him by not allowing him to coach in CFP. And Lane Kiffin's like, nah, it ain't going down like this. You finna let me coach this team, or I'm taking everybody with me, and I'm gonna burn this thing down to the ground. Hey, I can't get mad at Lane Kiffin. How can you get mad at him? If Lane Kiffin wants to coach this team, the players that he got there, he should be given the right. Because if not, he's just going to say, all right, I'm going to just take my staff. And then you guys are going to get shafted like how FSU did 3 years ago when they missed out on the playoffs, because when they lost Jordan Travis, they were no longer viewed as one of the best 4 teams in college football. If you lose your entire offensive staff, that gives the committee a very plausible reason to leave you out of the playoffs. Ole Miss has no choice but to get on their knees and abide by Lane Kiffin's final wishes. And look, you can call this toxic because it definitely is toxic. I'm not excusing the wildness of it. I'm not excusing the toxicity of the situation. Why can't Lane Kiffin just go out quietly? Because he led this team to the playoffs. He should be allowed to have the final authority to finish this season off and go to war with his guys one last time. You can give him that honor. He's the greatest head coach in the history of your football program. You have never had more success over these last 4 years than what you have with Lane Kiffin. So why would you disrespect him like this? I understand the power trip. It still is effed up how he's going about it. But hey, man, they say when you got power, you got to use it. Wow. Have we ever had a coaching departure this toxic, get so wild, hit the fan this fast? I've never seen anything like this. This is college football at its finest. You got to love it. Like, I know if you're an Ole Miss fan right now, you're in hell. You are extremely irritated and you're pissed off of Lane Kiffin, and I completely understand. But if you remove your fandom aside, bro, this is cinema. This is why I love college football. You never would have something like this going down in the NFL. You got the head coach who has taken the job to coach your biggest opposition, and he's threatening to take his entire coaching staff, compromise you being able to play in the playoffs altogether if you don't allow him to finish this season. Wow. You gotta love college football. You gotta love it. Like, I'm a Miami fan, and I'm enjoying every single second of this because this is so random. I never thought this thing would get to the level of toxicity that it currently has reached right now. But this is why college football is the best sport in America. You don't find anything like this anywhere else. It's like I'm not going to sleep for the rest of the day. I'm probably finna pull a 24-hour today because I gotta keep getting more updates on this Lane Kiffin situation. One thing about Lane Kiffin, that brother knows how to keep brothers entertained. He definitely knows how to soak up all the attention. And oh my goodness, wow. Team meeting at 9 a.m. gets pushed back because you're threatening to take the entire offensive coaching staff with you. Whew, Lane Kiffin.